Okay, welcome everybody to this session on IPA. This is me, Mikael Rinnetmäki from Tampere, Finland, a founder of diabetes health tech startup SensorTrend and also the FHIR ambassador of HL7 in Finland, still for a few days. And we're talking about international patient access specification today. And I'm not going to introduce the IPA. Isaac, who's sitting there, will be doing that later today. So at 3:45, go into that session if you want to know what IPA is about. I trust that all of you already know, but I'll still say a couple of words. So giving patient access to their own structured health data online, so you can actually point apps to your data, or you can download it structured format and utilize it for your own purposes. And the specific topic is how do you actually profile for international patient access? There are many different profiles on top of FHIR. Well, first of all, about profiling, it is the kind of addresses the 80% rule of FHIR. So FHIR addresses 80% of the global needs that are common to everybody, and then you advance it by profiling in smaller either jurisdictions or use cases. And we have these jurisdictional profiles like European one, and then a Finnish profile, Finnish base profile and core profile and smart and so on. And all of those might be more and more restrictive. And then there might be SensorTrends profiles even on top of that. And then we have use case specific profiles like international patient access or international patient summary, or then the European version of the patient summary, or the Nordic countries might have their own profile, and even Finland might have their own patient summary profile. And the difficulty here is that you can't just layer them on top of each other because they have different use cases. The EU base, for instance, want to say that, hey, these are the things that are relevant for all apps or all use cases in Europe, but then the European patient summary wants to take something from the patient access and patient summary. And then this is what we're talking about. How do you then create a profile that takes all of the relevant things from different layers of this architecture? And the main dilemma is whether you inherit a profile or impose another profile or comply with another profile or redefine what's in another profile or just to ignore what's stated elsewhere. And I'll briefly introduce all of these. The simplest one is the parent. So in your profile, you say that the parent of this profile is this another profile. And then you get everything that's defined in that other profile inherited into your profile. And that's simple, but you can do that only with one profile. Profile can only have one parent. And if you need to do this, like with IPA, IPS, it's common that you need to have kind of reference to your local base and then the use case specific profile. Then there are different mechanisms. The strongest one is impose profile. That's an extension you can have on your structure definition on your profile saying that, hey, we inherit, or this is the base, select one of those and then impose another profile. And the tooling supports this really well. So you get all the benefits of the IG publisher and validator saying that, hey, this is compliant or not. The other less strong guarantee is complies with. And that gives you as an author a lot of responsibility. It means that you have checked that your profile is actually compliant with another profile, and you guarantee that to app developers or anybody using your profile. But it is error prone because there's no tooling support for that. Another alternative is to redefine. So copy everything that is defined in that project profile and bring it into your own profile. And that's also error prone and tedious to maintain at some point. And then finally, you can just ignore it. And this is a totally valid scenario for some use cases. So you're focused on your use case, and you say that this is what we profile, and then you leave it to others, so validators, to say that they need to validate all the resources with your profile and then with some other profile. And then I was going to talk a lot about when two profiles are compatible, but there's a change to that, and Graham will speak about that in the future. I do mention that the big challenge with imposed profile, for instance, is the slice names. So if you have one profile as a base and then you impose another profile, or you impose two different profiles and they happen to have slicing rules with the same name, how do you then merge that and do you come up with a new base slice name and all of that? So that's the big challenge in current versions. And that's why Graham's recently proposed a new mechanism for this, and that's the additional base. And this, I don't remember his actual wording, but we need to be careful not to say that this is multiple inheritance, but it still allows you to say that, hey, I am deriving of this base and merging both of these together. And this new mechanism should get around the difficulties that we have with slice names. And then let's go to some of the examples. How do different jurisdictions actually apply this? So Australia, I would say, is kind of the model citizen at the moment. So when we work with IPA specification, we get currently a lot of feedback from Australia. They do talk a lot about this in their IG. They don't officially refer to IPA in their profiles, but they do have that as a dependency in their IG. And this is how they define it. They have the FHIR standard and then AU base and core on top of that. And then they further explain it like this, that AU core, for instance, feeds into IPA and is compatible with IPA. So this is their announced goal. And then they do these kind of manual comparisons on edit time. So see all of their profiles, whether they are fully compliant with international patient access or international patient summary or US core. So US core is also kind of their aspiration for global harmonization. And then they have different explanations on the IG saying that, for instance, medication request is something that we still don't fully agree with, at least on the version 1.0 of the IPA. So there might be some challenges there, and then they say that IPA has further constraints that they don't have in their core. So this kind of service for app developers and implementers is really good, but of course it takes effort from them to make that comparison. Canada, I'm leaving out right now because I wasn't able to verify the actual status, but I know that Sheridan Cook, who works for the Canadian Health Infoway, is heavily involved in IPA, so they are at least paying close attention to IPA. Denmark has this kind of solution, so they have their Denmark core specification, and then on top of that, for each of the IPA-related profiles, they have a separate profile that specifies the national base as their kind of base, and then impose IPA profile. In Finland, this is the case I can talk most confidently about because I was involved in these discussions. We decided first to advertise IPA profiles by making all of those Finnish profiles that had a matching IPA profile actually derive from IPA profile. And then when we learned that, hey, there are some constraints that in a wider context can't be applied, then we had a different profile for that. And that was for our STU1. But in STU2, recently we changed this and we rather published the Finnish Smart App Launch implementation guide that talks about patient access more generally, and then we moved these IPA-related profiles there, and it seems to be a much more applicable place for those profiles. And here we do the same as the Danes, so we kind of have the base, the Finnish base as the base profile, and then we impose the IPA profile. And US core, that does the kind of final way and ignores IPA altogether, but we think it's okay because IPA has been largely driven by what's been implemented in the US, and we assume that it's pretty much compatible, and we don't need to be too worried at this time, but going forward would be nice to have some kind of a formal relationship there as well. And then finally about how do we actually utilize the IPA, International Patient Access. So mentioning US, Apple, for instance, in US, Canada, UK, somewhere else has the possibility for the patients to download their data to Apple Health Kit from their healthcare provider, and that is really empowering. And Common Health does that for Android platforms, so regardless of which of those platforms you use, you can get your data in those countries. And in Finland, we recently, in last December, introduced a similar API, so we have centralized storage for healthcare information. All the healthcare providers are mandated to store data into this centralized registry, and now we finally opened APIs to that registry, so app developers can finally develop apps and then publish those, and they can get access to the citizens' health data if the citizen so chooses. So some differences here in US, the patient access is kind of a Wild West, as we called it. There's no certification, there's no accreditation of apps. Anybody can just implement an app and publish it, and then it's up to each individual to trust that app and allow that app to access to your information. In Finland, we have quite stringent rules to the apps and the formal certification process involving third-party security audit and accessibility audits and all of that. So a bit more constrained, but still we do have the APIs, and that's awesome. And hoping that many other countries will follow, because in Europe we like to lead, but we don't like to be alone. So please follow and adopt the same approach in your countries. And you can find me here or in Zulip or by email, or you can join the IPA calls that we have bi-weekly now. Or then we have Nordics on FHIR call. If you're from the Nordics, those are monthly calls. And then I'm occasionally attending HL7 meetings as well. Time for questions, I guess. Okay.
Any questions? Hold on, let me bring the mic over.
Let you guys know, I'm from Canada Health Info. So I can confirm with you, the patient summary we developed for already like a version 2.
Yep.
It's derived from the IPA, so it's fully compatible with IPA. And also develop the CA core. So the idea is this year going to be, the CA core actually right now is mainly based on use case of patient summary and the e-referral, but it could be more. But the idea is later on, the patient summary was going to be fully compatible with CA core and IPA, both.
Yeah. Thank you for that confirmation. So I was kind of looking for that information, and I found Canada core and then Canadian base as well, and all of these. But yeah, for the stream, CA core is fairly new.
Another just breaking news is that actually US Core is, as part of US Core 8, when that's published, like in the next few weeks or month or something, we'll have a page describing its relationship to IPA, similar with the Australian page as kind of a exemplar. So I think we'll at least have like an official relationship documented as part of the US Core spec too.
Excellent to hear.
Any more questions?
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I was wondering, where's the exact differentiation between the IPS and IPA, and how do they interact with each other? Because I heard now that they are deriving from each other, but then some are just inheriting from each other. So maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
I could, but I don't want to steal it from Isaac. So Isaac's presentation does have that later on. So in really short, IPA is about access. So you can get access to all of your data, whereas IPS is a specific document or specific set of data, the summary document and how you can use that. So it's kind of, IPS is use case driven, whereas the use case for IPA is just access. Give me all my data or give me this specific set of my data.
Yeah, hello. My question doesn't really connect with the current topic, but you mentioned about the Finnish Smart on FHIR profile. I'm wondering what was your specific need in Finland to make your own Smart on FHIR profile?
Excellent question, and I think that is relevant. So when you try to advance the topic of patient access and giving patients access to their data, in Finland, we just had a major reform and many EMRs, EHRs are being renewed. And we wanted to publish a national documentation that could be referred to from tenders and requests for quotations, all of that. The healthcare organization said that it's too difficult for them to, for instance, point to Smart on FHIR. It's too wide and it's too vague. So we profiled it down a bit and then published that as a Finnish standard so that the tenders can actually reference, hey, this is what you should be implementing with your system. So that was the main driver. And in essence, it's just saying that, hey, you should implement Smart on FHIR, but we say that JSON is mandatory, for instance, and XML you can support. And if you really care about Turtle, go ahead, but we don't care. And then REST is mandatory as well. So some really small profiles on top of Smart. And now we have the IPA profiles there as well. But yes, highly recommend for that purposes for each of the HL7 affiliates to kind of do the same and have a really lightweight profile on top of Smart.
Any more
Or
questions?
IPA.
Anybody else? All right. I guess we can. Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to be the last because it's not directly related with IPA also. So you said the hospitals are mandated to send data to the central registry. Do they also do that through some, with FHIR and with some profiles? Or?
Right. We started with that already 15 years ago. So FHIR wasn't available. It's CDA based and V3. Some of that exchange is still V2. But the government organization maintaining that registry has made a strong commitment that any new APIs that they will developing will be on FHIR. And in 2016, we launched the Finnish PHR, so personal health record, and that is for all these devices and all of the data that patients or citizens themselves govern, and that is purely FHIR-based already. And then I mentioned these patient access APIs that we have. Those are FHIR APIs, but when you go there and fetch your data, it's not translated to FHIR. So what you get is document references and the CDA document that's actually stored there. So I think that was a relevant question. And finally, I want to say I invited most of you to a meetup that we have on Wednesday at 11:45 a.m. It was p.m. first, but now it's a.m. So hope that wasn't too pushy, but please join there and continue the discussion. Me and Isaac, we want to hear about any challenges and thoughts that different countries and players have regarding patient access.
You have time for one more? I forgot. All right. Thank you so much. Oh, did I miss somebody? Who's raised? I got tricked. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.